rejoice and be glad today. Whether in your car, in your house, the single you got a spouse. It's now time to open up your mouth and let the praise out. Femi Sachs, what we telling them?
This is a day, bro.
Okay, let me hear it.
This is the day, Lord, you have made. We will rejoice and be glad.
Well, hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you for joining us on today. This evening, we're back in small groups. And so I hope everybody is doing well and hope everybody can hear me that is listening. So we want to check that for a second, making sure that we got good audio as you are tuning in on tonight, making sure we got good audio on tonight. All right. It sounds like we're good. We got the thumbs up. Hey, thank you so very much for joining us on tonight. Hey, good evening, Siobhan. Thank you for joining tonight. All right, y'all, let's get moving tonight. We're back in small groups, and I'm teaching tonight. And good evening, everyone. So listen, I can hear you. Great, thank you so very much. I appreciate that. We're gonna go to Joshua chapter 13. That's where we're at tonight. And I said to my wife earlier, it would be a hard lesson tonight. It would lead me to the hard lesson tonight, but that's all right. Yeah. Heavy as the head that wears the crown. All right, let's go to Joshua chapter 13, verse 1, where we find now Joshua has grown older. All right, he's grown old. And Joshua chapter 1, the Lord said to him, "You are very old now." You know, sound like a little shade the Lord is saying. You know, I mean, if I wasn't clear, I think the Lord was throwing a little shade out here. But he could have said you're old, you're older. But he said you're very old. Yeah. The Lord says you're very old, and there are still very large areas of land to be taken. This is so amazing, so interesting. This text tonight, as we begin to break it all down. And I hope everybody is ready tonight. Hey, how's everybody doing? All right, let's move forward. He's old now, all right? Joshua is advanced in years. Joshua dies at 120. He's right now 100 years of age, all right? He's advanced in years, but his ministry was not yet complete. God still had a job for him to do. I need you to type in the chat, God still got work for me to do. God still got work for me to do. And before this moment, he was leading these people as a commander and as a warrior to go out to battle against the various groups. But he's now essentially because of age, he's not operating as a warrior, but he's now operating as a manager. He's operating as a manager. All right. He's sitting back and he's now depending on the wisdom of the Lord. You know, when we were young, we would just run into battle, right? Without thinking. Well, he's not running into battle anymore. He's now counting calls. He's now gaining wisdom. And so he's now sitting back, depending on the Lord's wisdom, trying to figure out how he's going to give now what God says, give these different tribes specific portions of this promise according to God's will. All right, he's got to now divvy up the promised land to different tribes. All right, and even though the scripture declares that Joshua was advanced, the latter portion of his life in years testifies to a promise, to multiple promises, as well as it says it to us. Let's go to Psalms 92, verse 14. All right, because we got to understand the whole scope of this that we're teaching. All right, Psalms 92 and verse 14. Be a good class, type Psalms 92, verse 14. All right, Psalms 92 and 14. Y'all got that? All right, here's what the scripture speaks about the righteous in Psalms 92 and 14. Growing in grace, they will still thrive and bear fruit and prosper in their old age. They will flourish and be vital and fresh, rich in trust, love, and contentment. That's what the scripture declares, that these are people who stayed planted in God all these years. They didn't flip-flop. They won't sometime me. They won't this month I'm gonna be in God. This week I'm out. No, they stayed consistent. All right. And so stay consistent, steadfast, and righteous unto the Lord. But here's God's promise that the more you grow physically, the more you will grow spiritually. All right. So humanity will eventually waste away. If you are living and breathing, you're going to grow older. A baby comes out the womb, they're already dying, right? Even though they're growing up. So eventually we will waste away physically and our bodies will fail us. But there's one thing that will not stop increasing, and that is your faith and your understanding of the things of God in his work and what he does in you and through you. Those things will never fade, right? And so that is something that is guaranteed. So as you and I are questioning what the future will hold and wondering what the years will bring forth to us, notice that there is something that we should never do. And that one thing we should never do is doubt. Nothing should ever make us feel that we will not have a greater fruit in God. Fruit is always to be expected. God working in you, through you, and he gives you something to look forward to in life. So Joshua was acting in this point as a manager. All right. He's not carrying a sword as much as he's carrying a pen. All right. But he's still serving God all the way to his last breath. All right. And as you read on in the dividing of this land, I'm in Joshua chapter 13, that you and I have to trust in the midst of this list. When you read Joshua 13, starting at verse 1, it tells you about the age of Joshua and how long, the longevity he has in ministry. All right. As you are reading this, right, when it comes down to the division of the land, all right, there is something tucked in the middle of the details of these people, right? I read this over and over, and I said, God, I'm not catching it, because I'm reading about how we're divvying up the land. What am I missing? He says, you ain't looking. Look, I need you to look again. So there's something tucked in the middle of this that I saw it, and I said, oh my God, I got to share with the saints. All right. When it comes to the division of the land, we're talking about 2.5 tribes now in this portion after verse 8. These tribes are beyond the Jordan. You got, watch this, you got Reuben, you got Manasseh, and you got Gad. Please don't miss this. Do not miss this. You got Reuben, Manasseh, and Gad. All right. These tribes under Moses' leadership, before they cross the Jordan to go into the promised land, right? They looked around and say, we like it here, right? So God made a deal with them, and they received an inheritance beyond the Jordan, and now they were actually going to inhabit it, right? Watch this. So when we see that there are names, borders, and inheritance, who belongs to what and what belongs to who, but there is a specific verse we want to talk about, which is the west side of Jordan. All right, verse 8, with the other half, with the other half tribe of Manasseh, the Reubenites and the Gadites received their inheritance, which Moses gave them beyond Jordan eastward, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave to them. Verse 13, but the Israelites did not drive out the people of Geshur and Makah. So they continue to live among the Israelites to this day. Now, what does that mean? Does it seem like it's anything that is Makah and Geshur? I mean, so what? Ain't no big issue. Ain't no big issue until you realize what happens. All right, family. Watch this. We pass down pain not only through what we do, but through what we leave undone. Y'all got to catch that. See, family isn't what you build, it's what you battle, right? Joshua didn't finish off the Jebusites. And in Joshua chapter 13, verse 13, all right, he did not drive out the people of Geshur and Makor, so they continue to live among the Israelites to this day. What does it mean? It means, watch this, these specific tribes came to inhabit the land that was given to them. They failed to do so, which is drive out two small people groups that they were in their midst. Two small groups they were supposed to drive out. We could read through all the lists of towns, cities, and think that they're insignificant and they are no threat. When you read it, you almost get the sense of, well, what's the big deal here? There's this thing called Geshur and Makor, and they're there. But if it wasn't a big deal or a serious problem, right, then the Holy Spirit would not have invested a verse in the Bible and tell us about them. So there is something serious here that is happening. Right when these tribes were about to go to their own place, we already encountered something that you and I will realize is a repeated pattern throughout this book. A repeated pattern. Watch this. They went where God told them to go, but they failed to drive out the people that they needed to drive out. Why? Because long ago, under Moses' leadership, Moses said, when you go into the land, make sure you eliminate all of them, lest you sin against me, because they will influence you. Okay, Moses, well, it's not Jericho, and it's not like this great place. It's just Geshur and Makor, right? They don't seem like a problem. But the reality is, what seems to be insignificant and harmless in one season shows up as a major problem in another. Because stuff you don't deal with comes back to deal with you. So it seems harmless, but let's go into 2 Samuel chapter 10, verse 6. I thought we was in Joshua 13. I'm trying to help you understand the text. Joshua 13, you got to go back to 2 Samuel chapter 10, verse 6. Are y'all listening? Are y'all listening? Stay with me. Stay with the text. I'm teaching you something. 2 Samuel chapter 10, verse 6 says this. When the Amorites, all right, did I say, Angela, did I say Geshur and Makor? I did? Great, keep that name. When the Amorites saw that they had become an object of hatred to David, they sent word and hired the Armenians and Beth Rehob and the Armenians of Zobah, 20,000 foot soldiers. And the king of Makor, the king of Makor, that's interesting, with 1,000 men, and the men of Tob with 12,000 men to fight for them. When we read this, what do we see? All it took was a few years and a few generations that was just small, insignificant, stuck in Joshua chapter 10. Now look what they've amassed and become. All right. You have the very same people now coming up against God's anointing. The very same people who thought that they wouldn't cause anything. Let's not waste our energy on this right now. In the future, they ended up becoming a threat. And David had to deal with it in his lifetime, because these tribes in Joshua 13 wouldn't deal with it in their lifetime. Some of us are fighting devils and demons that didn't belong to us, but belong to your mama and your mama's mama and your daddy and your daddy's 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 daddy. So you're still fighting generations of things that they didn't deal with. You ain't even got time to deal with your own foolishness. 2 Samuel, all right, so we got Makor. Let's go to 2 Samuel 13:37. 2 Samuel 13:37. 2 Samuel 13:37. But Absalom, watch this. This is David's son, right? Fled and went to his mother's father, right? Talmai, the son of Ahimaaz, king of Geshur. King of where? Oh, he's now king now. And David mourned for his son every day. Verse 38. Absalom fled and went to Geshur and was there for 3 years. Absalom was in rebellion to his family because he killed David's other son. And because he knew he was in trouble, out of all the places he could have gone, he goes to a place called Geshur. It becomes a place of fortification, watch this, and separation. The place shielded him between him and his family. There are some stuff that if you don't deal with it, it's going to separate you and your loved ones. Wow, 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 wow. David's son Absalom found refuge. He found refuge in Geshur. And what should have been eliminated became a safe place for rebellion. That's not just ancient history. That's modern reality. And many of us are fighting wars we didn't start. We fighting wars we didn't start because someone before us never finished. Wow. Geshur is David's in-law nation. All right. But it's also one of the Canaanite territories Israel should have conquered. This spiritual negligence became David's emotional nightmare. All right. Number one, here's the principle, and I hope you write it. Here's the principle. Unfinished business becomes emotional baggage. Unfinished business becomes emotional baggage. One more time. Unfinished business becomes emotional baggage. Look at Joshua 13 and verse 13. But the Israelites failed to drive out the people of Geshur and Makar. Right? Joshua has partial obedience created, watch this, partial obedience created future vulnerability. All right, he's old. He ain't even going to be here. He dies at 120, so he's not even there. David comes along chapters later, right? This happened in Joshua. David comes along chapters later and got to deal with what Joshua did not deal with and went off the scene. All right. Delayed deliverance invites generational dysfunction. Delayed deliverance invites generational dysfunction. In other words, watch this. Trauma is often not about what happened, but what was never healed or never handled. Yeah. It's not about what happened, but what was never healed and never got handled. We got to stop passing pain down in the name of peace. Just because you're tired, doesn't mean you get to tap out. You don't just finish for yourself. You finish for your family. Let's stay in the Bible study. Yeah. Because this is not about you running your race, right? This is legacy, right? A good father leaves an inheritance for his children, right? Yeah. Doesn't leave more bones in closets to deal with or baggage that they got to carry. I'm all in my message on Sunday morning, right? So you cannot leave your baggage to me while you go in the presence of the Lord. Wow. Number two, here it is. Number two, you can't ignore what God told you to eliminate. You cannot ignore what God told you to eliminate. Geshur, watch this, and I hope you write this. Geshur means the unresolved past. Geshur means unresolved past. Absalom found safety in the land that should have been surrendered to God. What Joshua tolerated, David had to emotionally manage. And there's some stuff that was not managed properly that now we are having to emotionally manage. I'm not putting this all on a generation before you. I'm gonna put this on seasons where you should have dealt with some stuff. There's some seasons you should have killed some stuff. There's some seasons you should have threw old trinkets of old boyfriends and girlfriends away. The reason why it's resurfacing is because now you start to reminisce. And when you start reminiscing, now you start trying to find them again. Because there are something, when the Bible speaks of casting down every imagination, everything, you got to cast down the things that you've been reminiscing about. Okay, you know what? The children of Israel was reminiscing when they got into a hard place about how easy they had it back in Egypt. Wait a minute. We had 3 hots in the cot in Egypt, but you forgot you had a whip too. You forgot you didn't get paid what you was deserved. You forgot that part. Because watch this. Sometimes we block out. This is psychology now. Sometimes we block out the pain that we went through to remember the good things we did experience there. So you make that the totality of your memory when it's a false memory, because it's only a partial memory. Oh, this is therapy right here on a Tuesday night. Yeah, this is therapy. So the problem is that now we've got an issue, all right? What Joshua tolerated, now David had to emotionally manage, all right? And some of us are parenting dysfunction, marrying trauma, leading with wounds because no one before us had the courage to break the cycle. Oh my God. Oh my God. Let me say that one more time. You are parenting dysfunction. You know you are an enabler. All right. How is he sitting in your child sitting in your house? Won't go to school, cutting the food. And I pay the rent, you paying rent, you paying mortgage, you paying light bill, and they walk around with a bowl of cereal. All right, bowl of cereal in a house coat, tell me I ain't going today. And you ain't working no job. Ooh, parenting dysfunction. How are you 30 years old still living with you? How you 40 still living in the basement? You ain't even, listen, it's one thing. It's one thing if you are that age and you had a setback. It's one thing if you that age and you got a plan. But you ain't never leaving. You buying brand new pieces of furniture, the dresser for the basement. You inviting your boo to come into the basement. You live with your mama. You got a back door entrance. I'm sorry, private entrance. It's quiet in here. I don't hear nobody online talking. How you got a key with a private entrance? Yeah. I'm trying to figure that part. Parenting dysfunction. No wonder they can't keep no girlfriend. No wonder they can't keep no man, because you have parent dysfunction. Because some things were passed down to us were generational dysfunctions. So now we got the nerve to have our own children and now have dysfunction that we pass down to them. Just because they passed it down don't mean it was right.
Yeah.
Don't mean it was valuable. Some stuff you need to say, no, thank you. Ooh, I'll pass. I'll pass. Yeah. So you parenting dysfunction. Watch this. You marrying trauma. Ooh, let me jump right there. I ain't gonna stay long on that street. Parenting dysfunction, but now you're marrying trauma. You can't even get beyond things because now my wife and I was talking about this today. I'm having to always to affirm you, and because you didn't get affirmation from mama and from daddy. So now I got a whole child, grown child, I got to raise, and calling that my husband and my wife. Okay, just because you cried and they stuck a bottle or a nipple in your mouth. Too much?
I don't know where you're going.
Just because they stuck that in your mouth because you were spoiled. Now you get in relationships, you want me now to stick another bottle and nipple in your mouth. Because now what you want is you got to get my nails done. You got to get my hair done. Or you got to treat me this way. And if you don't, now I go silent. Now I got an attitude. I got a funky attitude. And then got the nerve to stand up at an altar and say I do. You didn't even get healed yourself. Two dysfunctional people get married. What kind of recipe is that? Disaster. It's a disaster recipe. You dysfunction, he dysfunctional.
Different dysfunction. Double the dysfunction.
Y'all dysfunctional. And then you got the nerve to blame it on the devil. He said back in my, I ain't do that one. The devil said, I ain't do that. That's all them. That's all them. Yeah. And so watch this. And leading with wounds.
Yeah.
Because no one before you had the courage to break the cycle. You leading other people wounded. Bleeding on other. You're going to mess around and bleed out if you don't get healed. Somebody type in the chat, I need to get healed. I need to get. Some of us are, watch this, we need to get healed and stop lying to ourselves.
Yeah.
You can't heal what you refuse to confront. You can't heal what you refuse to confront. Number 3, you must finish what you started. I'm in Joshua chapter 13, verse 1. You are old, and there is still very much land to be possessed. Joshua's assignment wasn't done. Type in the chat, my assignment ain't done. Even though his energy was fading, God's promises require, watch this, God's promises require your persistence. God's promises require your persistence. You can't pass down inheritance you never took possession of.
Right.
Oh, that's good.
Right.
That's good. You can't pass down something you never took possession of. Right? I don't care how long you've been in church. If you haven't finished what God told you to conquer, don't sit down. Get back in the fight. I need everybody online to type, get back in the fight. I need everybody at the table to type, get back in the fight. You can't die with Gesher still standing. You cannot die with Gesher still standing. All right. Number 4, incomplete obedience invites enemy strongholds. All right. All right. You want to talk about warfare, and you want to talk about the enemy coming up against you. Ma'am, sir, may I suggest to you, maybe they're coming up because you left windows up. You left doors open and had the nerve to cut the TV on. No wonder they sitting there with you, fighting you and aggravating you and agitating you. You let them in. It wasn't no B&E. It was a walk-in E. Breaking an entry.
Oh.
Somebody said, what's a B&E? Breaking an entry. Yeah. Yeah. A W&E is walking entry. 2 Samuel 13:37. It says, and Absalom fled and went to Talmah, king of Geshur. Geshur becomes a sanctuary. Write this down. Geshur, G-E-S-H-U-R. G-E-S-H-U-R. Geshur becomes a sanctuary for unresolved pain. In other words, can I say it like this? Geshur is a place for hiding rebellion. You know God told you to do something and you still trying to work around it. Some of us are frustrated not because the enemy is strong. You're frustrated because we gave him space. You gave him a mic. Now he talking. You know what? I discovered something. I said this earlier, that we get to heaven, we'll be asking Adam and Eve, why'd you let the snake in your garden? They're going to be asking you, why you give him a mic? Because you gave him a mic to talk. Okay, in your life, I know where we messed up at, but how is it you now giving him a mic to talk? Wow. Don't let what should have been defeated in your generation become the stronghold in the next. That's so rich. That's so rich. Don't let what should have been defeated in your generation. Some folk have they had marital issues, right? Because mama and daddy never got it together. They passed down dysfunction to their babies. And their babies are 30 years old now. Mom and daddy might be on the other side. But babies are 30 years old now, wondering, sitting in therapy, talking about, I can't keep nobody. Because I never saw what a healthy relationship looked like. Ooh, I never saw what a healthy relationship looked like. I never saw what healthy friendship looked like. I saw what dysfunction looked like. Wow. If Joshua had finished what God had told him to do, David wouldn't have to carry the emotional weight of a broken son hiding in an old enemy's land. You can't write this down. You cannot control what came before you, but you can confront what's in you. That's good. That's good. Because sometimes we got to confront the inner me that we've been calling the enemy. What you call the enemy, if you slow it down, is the inner me. That means there's some stuff inside. Ooh, there's some mess inside of me I got to deal with. I remember one time I had left church one Sunday morning, and I went home after the preacher had finished preaching. Right? He had finished preaching. I drove home mad. Who are you mad at? Me. I look in the rearview mirror and say, I can't stand you. See, you ain't ready for change. Oh, change is inevitable. Growth is optional. Oh, that's good. Change is inevitable, but growth is optional. I had to look me in the mirror and said, I'm so sick of you. I'm so sick of the way you talk. I'm so sick of the way you think. I had laid me out. You'd have thought I was crazy. Because I talked to me. I didn't let nobody else talk to me. I was talking to me. I ain't blaming on nobody else. We got a generation that's been blaming it on their haters. Oh no, we got to stop blaming it on our haters. Some of that, boo. Y'all remember when James Evans had that look and said, that's you? We were talking about the mask. We wore the mask during COVID. And so you've been talking about everybody else's breath was stinking, but you had to smell your own. James said, no, that was you. Yeah, some things you had to smile at yourself and say, that was me. That's me. Yeah, yeah. All right, here's application tonight. I'm running out of time. Here's the application. Number one, you got to audit your legacy. You got to audit your legacy. What's in your bloodline or personal story remains still unconquered. What's in you? Yeah, audit your legacy. You got to audit your legacy. What's inside of you, you still ain't conquered. All right? Number two, you got to get honest about avoidance. Get honest about avoidance. What hard conversation, boundary, or confrontation have you delayed? Because some of us have delayed having the hard conversations with ourselves. Huh? You delayed having a hard conversation with you. All right, you got to audit your legacy. You got to get honest about avoidance. But here it is, number two. Number three, you got to finish for the future. Obedience isn't about comfort, it's about closure. I'll say that again. Obedience isn't about comfort, it's about closure. Because you got to kill what needs to die in your life so your children don't have to live with it in theirs. But I ain't looking for no children. What about your nieces and your nephews?
Right.
Some of you all are called to be the Joshua and the David, called to conquer, called to heal, but you can't heal, watch this, what you still keep entertaining. Some stuff, you got to stop entertaining it.
That's good.
You can't fix what you're still flirting with. Let me say that again. You cannot fix what you still keep flirting with. And you can't pass peace if you haven't possessed it. I need everybody to type this. I need everybody online to type this online. It ends with me. It ends with me. The curse ends with me. The silence ends with me. The disobedience ends with me. It ends with me. The very thing that the enemy is trying to mess over my mind ends with me. I will not take a curse into my next generation. If I'm gonna curse anything, I'm gonna curse them. I'm gonna curse what's trying to continue to flow through my bloodline. It ends with me. My stinking thinking ends with me. It ends with me. Relationships that don't work, it ends with me. I declare it all ends with me. I'm gonna be better. I won't pass this thing down. I ain't gonna play with my present or my future. Because he got too much great plans for me that I don't want to get delayed or diverted. You are not just breaking curses. You are building a legacy. Let me say it again. We are not just breaking curses. We're building a legacy. Can I say it like this? Sometimes it's not what you did that hurts the next generation. It's what you didn't finish that hurts the next generation. Wow. Joshua's failure to completely obey God's instructions left strongholds in the land. And those unresolved territories turned into future battles. God told Joshua what remained, but he didn't move on it. He got slack on it. Write this down. What you have left unhandled that could evolve into emotional or spiritual battles and come after you. Write this down. Unresolved trauma is often passed down. Not just genetically, but emotionally. All right, I need you to do something. Write down 3 areas in your life that need closure. Write down 3 areas in your life that needs closure. 3 areas in your life that needs closure. Healing. Write 3 areas down in your life that needs healing. 3 areas that need closure, 3 areas that need healing, and 3 areas that need completion. and commit one of those areas to prayer and take one tangible step today. Closure, closure, healing, completion. Write this last thing down. Don't just conquer on the outside, right? Win the war within. Don't just look the part, because it's easy to look the part. You can get your hair done, you can get the right clothing on, you can put the right outfit together, and still losing the battle internally. Because man looks on the outward, but God looks at the heart. Oh, you look good on the outside and you look like you killing the game, but you living like a prisoner on the inside. Because your inner man just got, watch this, you only got let out on good behavior, on probation, to go to church, but you got to go right back in your cell, in your inner cell, because you refuse to deal with some things that keep locking you up. And if you don't deal with some things that keep locking your spirit and your soul up, you'll be free to walk and go and travel anywhere in the world, but you'll never be happy. You'll never be fulfilled. You'll never be complete, because you never dealt with some things you should have dealt with a year ago. Oh, I know this is a hard lesson. I know this is a hard lesson, but there are some things you should have dealt with by now.
Yeah.
Some things you should have dealt with in your childhood. Some stuff you should have dealt with in your adolescence. Some stuff you should have dealt with in your young adulthood. And some things, please, whatever you do not get married if you ain't dealt with it. Don't bring nobody else in your life if you ain't dealt with some things. If you ain't looked yourself in the mirror and said, God, help me to deal with this. Help me to bring closure to it. Please don't bring nobody else in. Don't make this function a party. Hey, I hope this blessed room done tonight. Hey, talk to me. What part spoke to you? What part stuck out at you? I like to know. What part stuck out at you? Anybody? Come on, I'm done tonight.
I think for me, just taking a hard look in the mirror. And you talked about it, the word avoidance. But I think also procrastination is a part of that as well, because when you really take that time to sit down and look at yourself in the mirror and really start to examine some things, you're faced with the truth that you have covered up for so long. So it's hard to accept it. So I think this, for me, is just asking God to give us strength to just stay in that place and really face the ugly in us, so that way he can really deal with it and make us whole. Because if we keep running from it, if we keep trying to hide in the shadow of it, we're going to just keep going in a circle. But so being able to really just sit in that truth, no matter how ugly or how hard it is, it's needed if we truly want to be who God has called us to be and do what he has called us to do. But no more avoidance, no more procrastination. It's time to dig deep.
Yeah. You know, I think it's kind of like peeling back the layers of that onion. And a lot of times we see something that may be surface and we're like, oh, I can deal with that. But upon further investigation, we realize this isn't it, because now there's something else. And that thing is a little harder to deal with. And so we might start, but every time you peel back that layer, it gets deeper and harder because it's been buried that much further down in there. And I think a lot of times that's the place that we get frustrated, or we get scared, or fearful. If I dig deep into this, what is it going to do to everything else? Right. If I dig deep into this issue and I have to confront this issue, in that moment, how is it going to affect the people around me? Because maybe my circle can't handle this issue that I'm now 3 layers deep in, and I need to figure it out but do I have support, around me? Are people going to be able to understand? And so if I think it gets hard because it's not surface.
Yeah.
And so the more we go, the harder it gets, the deeper back we have to go, the further we have to unearth what's really happening. But to get to that true level of healing, we can't stop at the surface.
But that, I think, also takes us knowing God as the comforter, like knowing that He's not, that He won't judge us, knowing that He will be kind to us, and that although it may be hard, it may be uncomfortable for us to deal with, He's holding our hand along the way. Like there's no shame, there's no condemnation in it. So I think it really just goes to us having to own our truth and own what it is that we're not doing, what it is that we are doing, like all of the above. But as you were talking, what came to me was you can't be afraid to face the truth. Like you can't keep running from it. You're going to have to eventually sit down with it at some point.
And to add on to it, this is why it's so important to understand those that are in your circle. Understanding that there comes a time when you have to cut off certain people, maybe not necessarily, maybe not forever, but for that season, because God will use your destiny helpers to help facilitate the healing. You never know what they may have been through that they can relate to you and can help you through it, with their advice or what have you, but that's all a part of His plan. That's why they're called destiny helpers. It's using your discernment to help you understand if you are a destiny helper or if you are not a destiny helper. Right. So once you get that kind of down pat, you can then again, continue through that healing process, the way God intends for us to do it.
And if it was easy, we would all do it. Like we wouldn't be here. And so I think sometimes you have to recognize that it's not, God is with you, but it's not that easy. Because if I could heal everything right now just by saying, God, we would all do that because we don't want to live in this space. Right. We don't want to pass these things on. So sometimes you have to acknowledge, okay, this is a journey. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. This was years of childhood trauma or years of marriage trauma or years of friendship trauma that is buried. And so how do I continue to move forward?
Like this is who I am,
Oh yeah.
I'm big on a lot of people saying that it's kind of like the thing where it's not just you. Again, you got to dig deeper into that, right? But I think it's kind of hard because again, you see you pull back one layer, right, and you realize okay, it's not that bad. And you pull back another layer, you realize hold on now, it's a lot to deal with, right? And then not having the right circle, not being around the right individuals. Sometimes you think like, well, maybe I just put that back. We've been procrastinating for this long, right? I mean, how bad could it be? I mean, we can go back to what we said earlier. We said like sometimes I say it gets cloudy. Sometimes you avoid certain parts of the memory, right? So like, is it that bad? Can I just keep it like how I am now? Yeah. Rather than like, okay, this may fall apart. I may lose these friends with this process. I might lose that, but not realizing that is part of the process. I think sometimes it goes back to, I think I'm okay right here. Not realizing there's more than that's more to that.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of that, Bishop, I can't remember exactly how you said it, but it was something along the lines of you can't hold on or just keep something hidden or not uncover something for the sake of peace, especially when we're talking about stuff that's passed down through family. I think a lot of us have heard, like growing up, what happens in this house or what goes on in this family stays in. But we now, I think, are seeing how damaging that mindset and that, like, not theology, whatever the mindset is of that, and how it compounds. And what you think you're dealing with one generation, it's a bunch of generations and their trauma before you that is just, it's like a domino effect, and now you're having to deal with all this stuff. But we are in a position now, I think a lot of us sitting at this table, a part of CCR, that are in a position to be that curse breaker, to be that person to say enough is enough. And that comes with a lot. And to know you brought up, or I can't remember who said it, but having a friend group that may not understand or what that is and what that looks like for you. There are certain things I can say for myself, like, that I have dealt with, that I am fighting through now that my family members have not dealt with, and they don't know how to deal with it, or they just don't want the pressure of it. Like, well, this person is going to react this way, and I don't want to have to deal with their attitude after that. But if someone doesn't do it, it's just going to keep going. So sometimes you are going to have to deal with a thing, and break a curse seemingly by yourself. God is always with you, yes, but sometimes your circle, especially when it's something family related, isn't going to understand or be that, or can be that support for you, because they couldn't like make it make sense in their own mind. You know what I mean? But that, as far as keeping something in and holding on to things solely for the sake of peace, that mindset has got to go. It got to go.
I like, as you were talking about that and like holding on to things, like I'm thinking of like a trash receptacle, right? And the quote that stood out from tonight, you said, Gesher becomes a sanctuary for unresolved pain. When we think of a sanctuary, that's like a place where you go to release things. Like, we lift our hands in the sanctuary. Okay, so I'm worshiping, like I'm getting my praise on, like I'm getting peace as I'm releasing. But if Gesher becomes a sanctuary, what we're actually releasing is more trash into the trash bin. And the more trash that keeps piling up, it's gonna be maggots, it's stinking, it's nasty. And you're looking around like, why is everybody straying away from me? You stink. Like why can't I keep somebody? You stink. So if we don't start dealing with that trash, that receptacle is gonna keep overflowing, and it's just displeasant. It's unpleasing. So that really stuck out to me tonight.
You know, and I think sometimes we wonder why we can't keep friends and relationships, because we see.
Yeah.
Really.
My thought for tonight was just kind of trying not to be Joshua. I realized, actually Father's Day, I realized I had kind of got to a position of Joshua where I was tolerating a lot of things, and then kind of like that receptacle, one bolt go loose and now everything out in the flow, and I'm looking like, oh my, where all this come from? The onion been boiled, beat, busted, crusted. Ain't no more layers. The onion is just here. So it's just kind of like knowing how to get in that posture to just genuinely lean on God and know, like, for me, like, is it tolerance or healing? Like, things of that nature. Am I truly healed, or am I just okay this week? Type situation. So just genuinely knowing. Yeah.
People will just avoid something for a really long time and say, I'm healed from it. No, you just haven't. You just tucked it under the cover, threw it under the rug, and you can't see it anymore. Or you just hid it away, and because it's no longer in your vision now, you think it's resolved until something triggers it, and now you have to pull it back because you're triggered. Yeah.
Or you deliver from alcohol if you never go where alcohol is.
Right.
That's avoidance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a yes. Yeah. That means I'm healed or delivered from it, but I'm gonna avoid that family member. Oh, they're gonna be there. I'm not coming.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna avoid this place that is a trigger because me and my boo used to go there, and now I can't never go back to Red Lobster because he took me there. Like, I'm just saying. No, but it's avoidance is real.
But it's like Bishop said yesterday. Okay, your office is having a meeting, or y'all are having a function. It's at a party venue. Are you gonna go, or are you not gonna go just because you associate trauma with that place? Right. And if you go, then how are you gonna contain yourself? How are you gonna act? Once you get in that position, that's how you know whether or not the healing is taking place, or if you're just, you're just hiding, like you're avoiding it. So that made me think back to yesterday.
Devontae says you can't control what came before you, but you can control what's in you. Stop avoiding discomfort about your true self, because it lingers and is taxing in the long run. Desire to step forward. It is important. We have to be the change. Yeah. Good evening, Quinn. I see you. Hey, Quinn. Quinn Howard is in here. Quinn, good to see you. Yeah, I think it is the things we have to deal with. If we don't deal with it, eventually You may sweep it in for the moment, but somebody's going to eventually trip over that big knot in the rug. They're going to eventually trip over. So we got to deal with sometimes our own shortcomings. What are some of the things that you know about you need to deal with? What past hurt, what past pain, what somebody said to you, what somebody said about you that you need to deal with. Because if you don't deal with it, eventually it's going to deal with you.
Yeah.
All right, we out of time. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's great for the start for the first week of small groups. So can't wait to see you next week. Can't wait to see you Sunday. Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And we do got morning devotions at 8:30 every morning, 5 days a week. Look forward to seeing you there.